The truck tipped with a sickening roar, and the world turned blue and white. Luke crawled out of the smashed cab, ribs protesting, and froze. The highway had become a surreal beach. Hundreds of round blue and white balls tumbled across the asphalt, rolling into the grass like escaped toys. For a second he laughed, because absurdity felt safer than fear. Then he remembered the loading yard that morning. Men in a hurry, a curt signature on a clipboard, and a warning to not ask questions. He had shrugged it off. He'd never seen anything like this. He picked one up. It looked like a cheap inflatable at first, until he felt the weight, the hard shell under the paper. He tore at it. Layers peeled back like an onion, each one more carefully engineered than the last. He cut slower when he heard headlights. A black SUV glided up, tinted windows, men in suits stepping out like a squad from a thriller. Luke straightened. His hands shook. "Move away from the vehicle, sir," one of them said, flashing a badge the way a raised eyebrow can change a mood. They cordoned the scene, rolled out yellow tape, and began scooping the blue and white spheres into neat piles. Luke's brain kept whispering the same thing. This isn't right. Why were there so many men, and why did they seem to care so much about those silly balls? They asked him to leave. He called his friend Stephen to pick him up. The men in suits watched him go with hawk eyes. But on the ride away, Luke slipped one of the balls into the back seat, a small, stupid act of theft born of curiosity and that quiet, dangerous question, what am I really transporting? Back at Stephen's flat, the ball looked ridiculous on the kitchen counter. It felt wrong, heavy and secretive. They argued about who would open it. The knife slid, paper tore, layers unfurled, and then metal clinked against the counter like a bell of doom. Beneath the wrappings, syringes, vials, and blister packs packed inside clever casing. Luke's throat closed. He had signed for this. He had driven it. And he had no idea. Panic arrived as logic clattered into place. Those suited men had not just been overprotective, they had been guarding something worth a fortune, something worth stealing in broad daylight. If the shipment was valuable, what did it actually contain? If it was illegal, how deep did the trouble go? And if those men were truly agents of the law, or worse, a private army calling the cops could be the worst thing they could do. There was one clean paper trail left, the delivery manifest. Luke rifled through his coat and found the route, the final warehouse address. If the authorities wouldn't help, maybe the answer waited at the end of his own truck's journey. He grabbed Stephen, and they were on the road. Engines whining under a sky, getting dark with urgency. What they found at the warehouse would flip every sane expectation and force Luke to choose, run or join the secret. The warehouse loomed like a fortress, the black-suited men moving with precision that made Luke's stomach twist. Every blue and white sphere was being methodically gathered, inspected, and placed inside crates. It wasn't chaos. It was military-grade choreography. Luke and Stephen crouched behind the corner of a rusted dumpster, hearts hammering. One wrong step, and they'd be discovered, and they had no idea what the consequences would be. Luke raised his camera and snapped photos, his hands trembling. Each flash drew glances from passing men. One turned sharply, eyes scanning a predator's gaze, and Luke ducked just in time. They needed proof, but they also needed to survive. Then a man in a white lab coat emerged, calm in contrast to the tension, radiating authority without aggression. His gaze swept over Luke and Stephen, and yet his expression was almost inviting. "Who are you, and why are you here?" he asked. Luke swallowed, blurting out the entire story. The flipped truck, the blue and white balls, the men in suits, the rush, everything. The lab man listened intently, nodding, seemingly unaffected by the chaos surrounding them. "This," the man said finally, "is why the cargo was so secret." He gestured to the crates, and Luke's stomach lurched. Syringes, vials, and pills were inside each one, components for groundbreaking medical research. Not illegal, not dangerous, but valuable beyond comprehension, and hidden inside those playful balls to prevent theft or sabotage. Luke's eyes widened. All this time he'd feared the worst, yet the reality was far stranger than he could imagine. "You transported these," the man continued, "without knowing their purpose, but that ignorance has kept the operation safe." He smiled, almost kindly. "We need someone we can trust, someone who understands the importance of discretion. That's you, Luke." Luke's jaw dropped. From terrified driver to official courier for high-stakes government research, his life had shifted in a single day. Stephen blinked, equally stunned. The lab man handed them a folder. Instructions, protocols, and a contract outlining Luke's new responsibilities. They would never discuss the cargo, never deviate from the route, and always remain vigilant. Luke signed. It felt surreal, a mixture of pride, fear, and exhilaration coursing through his veins. Stephen agreed to accompany him in spirit, to keep the secret, and the two left the warehouse, their minds spinning with possibilities. Weeks turned into months. Luke became a ghost on the highways, transporting crucial medical components across the country. Each delivery was a delicate dance, precise timing, strict secrecy, and unyielding attention. He became part of a network, unseen yet vital, contributing to life-saving research. Every blue and white sphere he handled carried hope for patients, for scientists, for the world. The highway accident that had once threatened to ruin his life had become the turning point of his destiny. Luke never imagined that one swerved steering wheel, one deer, one accidental flip could lead to a life of clandestine heroism. He learned to trust his instincts, to act calmly under pressure, and to appreciate the invisible threads that connect ordinary people to extraordinary missions. In the end, Luke wasn't just a truck driver anymore. He was a guardian of innovation, a silent protector of hope, and a man who had stumbled into a secret world where every delivery mattered. And though the highways remained empty at night, and the blue and white spheres looked like simple toys to the untrained eye, Luke knew better. Each one held a story, a mission, a life saved, and he would carry that secret with him forever.